Joining us now is a guy who has lived in California probably since the gold rush. His name is Victor Davis Hanson. He's an esteemed scholar, Hoover Institution, Stanford University, lives in a valley. Selma, I shouldn't even say that, but he's not a coastal elite. And he had a pretty good view. I think Mr. Hanson is the best columnist, better than me. And I read him every week. He's also the author of the book, The End of Everything. All right, so let's talk a little California, then we'll get into a little Democratic Party. So is California gone forever? Are the people out there just so ardently liberal they just can't think about the welfare of their entire country? Or is it possible they may come back?
Well, they have to change. The way we got in this problem is that we lost 10 million of the old Pete Wilson, George Degmasian, Ronald Reagan voter over the last 30 years who fled to Nevada and Tennessee, Texas, Idaho. And then we had 11 million illegal aliens come in that same period. So there was a 20 million person demographic shift. But what's happened, Bill, is the interior of the state is where most of the 45% of the Hispanic population, who is the largest minority in the state, live, and they are now becoming middle class, and they can't make it. They can't buy homes. They can't pay for gas. We have the highest gas taxes. We have the highest electricity rates. We're very high with our sales taxes. We have a third of all the welfare recipients, and they are becoming very conservative. Not all at once, but they've Donald Trump flipped 5 counties in California from 2020 from blue to red. Some of them, like Fresno County, are very big. And so there's a movement. I don't think it's the beginning of the end, but it's the end of the beginning. We're just starting to see people cannot afford Gavin Newsom, Nancy Pelosi, Dianne Feinstein, Barbara Boxer, Jerry Brown.
The progressive
they can't
vision.
afford it.
But the coastal elites in Los Angeles County, the biggest county in the country, San Francisco, half of San Diego. I think San Diego is a battlefield politically. But the coastal elites, the George Clooney's and the movie stars and the tech people, they just are so entrenched into this progressive life. I don't think they're ever going to get out of it. And that's where the big money is, see? And that's where the money
have to change. Yeah,
right.
Yeah, you're right about that. So from San Diego basically to Berkeley, you've got 3 things working. That's where our universities are: Stanford, UCLA, Berkeley. They're all there, and they're big, and there's a lot of them. They're very world ranked, some of them. And then you've got $9 trillion of market capitalization in Silicon Valley, and then you've got the Bay Area left wing political establishment, and that trifecta makes it very hard. But you're starting to see it's not just the Elon Musk or Peter Thiel in Silicon Valley. You're starting to see people like Andreessen and Ben Horowitz, David Sachs. These were left-wing people and said, these guys are lunatics. We won't be able to function, and we're going to lose Silicon Valley to Austin, or we're going to lose it to Research Triangle in North Carolina unless we straighten up. And this state is our enemies. That's not our friends anymore. That's new, and it's just beginning. Okay. And we recalled the mayor of San Francisco and of Oakland and so it's not something that's going to be happy. It's not going to happen overnight, but it's just the very beginning of something.
See, but I don't understand why it doesn't happen overnight when the average Californian is paying more than $5 for a gallon of gas. I mean, it's so far ahead of everybody else. Here in New York, no conservative bastion, I'm paying $3 a gallon for gas. Okay, I go to LA, which I am going to do. I have to in a few weeks. I'm going to pay $5. All right.
Yeah.
And so
I think with all due respect, I think you'll pay $5.50.
All right. Whatever. Popular uprising doesn't seem to be happening, and that's what I don't understand. But let me ask one specific question.
Yeah.
So I have said that Kamala Harris is going to run for governor. I think what's his name is up in 2 years, and he can't run again, Newsom. And I think Kamala Harris is going to run. Do you concur?
She might run. I don't think she'll have a chance. She ran for Attorney General the first time, and she almost lost. It took 2 weeks to count the votes, and that was in a 70% left-wing state. She's not popular here. The Hispanic community is not fond of her. We have one of the smallest black populations. Only about 4% of the state is black now, and the identity politics doesn't work so well. But the main thing, Bill, is most of her money, that $1 billion and maybe the other billion in PAC money, actually came from California, from Silicon Valley and Hollywood, and they are furious at her because of the Oprah, Cardi B, Beyonce spending, the private jets, the no county.
Right.
And they're not going to give her any money. I hear that all the time from these people.
But who would challenge her? So it's a big name. Everybody knows her. ID is huge. Still got the machine behind her. So who could challenge her for governor?
Well, we don't have anybody. Yeah, we don't have any. But there's a lot of assemblymen, senators in the state that Los Angeles city councilman. They'll find somebody. But I don't think that her name. Yeah, I think she's going to have a Mike Dukakis retirement, just obscurity. I really do.
All right, I hope so, because she doesn't really bring anything to the table and never has, in my opinion, my humble opinion. So let's go national now. I don't know if most people in the country, people who watch you and me, read our columns and watch the No Spin News and all of that, they know. They know what happened 4 weeks ago, exactly 4 weeks ago. It was not only that Donald Trump won the election, but the Democratic Party was destroyed on a national basis. There's no leader for the Democratic Party now, none. So my question to you is, how fast can they rebuild for the next election 4 years away?
Yeah, I think they have to lose the midterms, and because they haven't got the message yet. They keep saying it was the messaging that they didn't present their case well enough. It wasn't. Every one of the issues that Donald Trump ran on polled even higher than Donald Trump did. The border, the economy, crime, overseas deterrence, the trans issues, the DEI woke issues. They were losing across the board, and they haven't given that up. They keep thinking that, well, maybe if we had done just this much, or we had the Joe Rogan, that's not the problem. And and this is despite 95% negative coverage of Donald Trump in the mainstream media, and they outraised him 2.5 to 1. They had all the advantages, and yet somehow, as you said, he had this mandate, and it was much bigger than the electoral college or the popular vote mandate, because the issues were all on his side, and they polled overwhelmingly in his favor, and yet they don't seem to have gotten the message. And they always think they can have a fix, Bill. They always think, maybe we can drain the Strategic Petroleum Reserve, or get Roe versus Wade, leak that memo out, or maybe we can cancel student loans as they did in the midterms, or this time around, maybe we can get a new candidate, or maybe we can promise this or that. But it's just, they don't get it. That fundamentally, the middle class has spoken.
There's nobody
they don't like them.
There's nobody in charge. There's no power, no single power. I guess Schumer would be the most powerful guy, and he's just wanders around, Schumer. I mean, they got Shapiro, the governor of Pennsylvania. They got the guy in Kentucky who's the governor. He's pretty popular. They got some moderate Democrats that they can parade on out there, but they are not progressives. And the progressives, the Soros money, the Hollywood money, Katzenberg, these people, they still control the party because they have all the money.
No, they do. But you got to remember, who were the people who got rid of Joe Biden? They weren't, as you say, they weren't politicians. Basically, they were the Obamas and the donor class. And Nancy Pelosi came in. So they represented, as you said, the progressive party who the people don't want anymore. And they have a lot of power because they had Hollywood, the Clooneys and the money, the Soroses, the Silicon Valley money, and then they had Pelosi and the Obamas pulling the strings. But what the price they paid for that is they haven't developed candidates of the Bill Clinton type that can appeal to people. But it took them from McGovern to Bill Clinton. We're about the same age. That was 20 years it took them to get from McGovern to Bill Clinton.
Right. Well, if Trump is successful, that chews in J.D. Vance, because that won't even be close. But you're right; it's a long game. Now,
Yeah.
the final subject I want to talk to you about is, I think, and I wrote a column this week, that the American people saved the country. It wasn't Donald Trump, although he absolutely, to me, is an astounding example of somebody who just wouldn't give up and took everything they threw at him. And he has to go down in history, and he will, if I have anything to do with it, as a superb example of courage in the face of all of what he had to think. But it was really the folks that drove this election that most Americans said, enough. We don't want this anymore. And I wavered in 22, Professor, because the midterms did not go the Republican way. And I predicted there was going to be a red wave in 22 because I saw this progressive destruction very early on, but it didn't happen. But the last 2 years, there was almost something magical that happened in the country. Can you put your finger on it?
Well, I think we'd had 2 years of disaster, but we hadn't had 4 years. So in this election, 2 years after, people thought, well, maybe this is so bad the border will be closed, or we can't go on with another Afghanistan pullout. So maybe that'll be the end of it. But it wasn't. And the other thing was that Donald Trump wasn't on the ballot. And you're right about him. He's a larger than life figure. Everything they did to destroy him made him stronger. But the main thing about him is he's able to appeal to and energize the middle class. He tells the middle class, don't disconnect. Don't drop out. Just because you don't want to watch Hollywood movies or you don't watch the Oscars anymore and you've given up, get back in and vote, because we can take the country back. And if you ask for a moment, maybe that iconic moment when he was at the McDonald's window and that Indian American fellow said, I'm just an ordinary person. And right off the bat, Trump said, you're not ordinary. You're not ordinary. No one's ordinary. I thought that was a really key moment that kind of exemplified his appeal.
Absolutely. For a guy who was raised in wealth, and I wrote about that in the United States of Trump, he has got the common touch. Hey, Professor, we always enjoy talking to you. I hope you'll come back.
Thank you.
Again, Victor Davis Hanson's columns, I get them on Real Clear Politics, which runs them steadily. So that's where you can get them. Very worth reading. And you have a Merry Christmas, Professor. Thanks very much for helping us out. Hey, folks, metabolic health matters. It affects energy, weight management, even sleep. And now, thanks to Lumen, the world's first handheld metabolic coach, it is easier than ever to improve your metabolic health. Lumen is a device that measures your metabolism through your breath. Their app then offers tailored guidance, personalized nutrition plans, and more. So easy to use. Just breathe into your Lumen first thing in the morning and get customized tips every day. You can also breathe into it before and after workouts and meals for an even deeper understanding of your health throughout the day. Take the next step to improving your health. Please go to lumen.me/nospin to get 20% off your Lumen. That's Lumen, LUMEN.me/nospin for 20% off your purchase. Thank you, Lumen, for sponsoring this episode. Let's bring in our pal Ruben Navarrete from Carlsbad, California. He's a syndicated columnist. Yes, you may have read his stuff. Very good, very astute. And not many people know this, but after I left Fox News in 2017, Ruben Navarrete was our first guest that we ever had on the No Spin News. And he's back. You look a little older, Ruben, but I'm aging in dog years, so, that's just the way it goes. Where am I making my mistake?
Bill, so good to be with you again, my friend. I think the place you're making your mistake is I'm often mistaken for a Republican, not just because I appear on Bill O'Reilly's show, but because I believe in what Reagan said in the 1980s about taking responsibility for your actions. And I think that American employers, for instance, need to own up to the fact that we've become addicted to undocumented immigrant labor going on 30 years now. not just because we think it's cheaper than US labor, but because it's more reliable. These people show up, they don't flunk their drug tests, they actually don't sleep in, they show up on time and they work. And also the drug problem, as the president of Mexico correctly pointed out, we have an addiction problem. I have 3 kids who are teenagers, but since they were babies, I've had doctors prescribe pill after pill after pill after pill for them. So many of these, and you've done shows about this, many of these pill mills, many of this addiction that we've bred in this country to take a pill and make it feel better. When I see these stories about people ODing on fentanyl, for instance, Bill, I see stories that read like this. A basketball team was celebrating a big win. They were doing cocaine, and oh my goodness, it was laced with fentanyl. Well, you know, your granddad was a cop. My dad was a cop, and I was growing up to not use cocaine, not use weed and drugs and pot. So I'm always mystified by how it is that when people use drugs they shouldn't be using that ends up being laced with fentanyl, we want to blame Mexico. I'll say this, just my last point. We don't have, in 35 years of covering this issue, we don't just have an issue with bad laws and bad borders. We have an issue with bad parenting. Because as parents, we've not stepped up to the plate, put our kids to do these jobs that our immigrants are doing, and also tell them just don't do drugs.
Okay. I don't disagree with your points, but I think that they are a little bit naive. So point number 1, Congress absolutely has to make a new immigration law. They call it comprehensive. That's a bunch of bull. And the new immigration law has to give out more green cards, more working permits to migrants who want to work legally. That has to happen. Whether Donald Trump gets behind it or not, I don't know. But in conjunction with sealing off the chaos, that has to happen. That's number 1. Number 2, the United States of America is responsible for people using narcotics. Yet nobody will deal with the problem because, oh, it's a disease and you got to feel sorry for them, all of that kind of stuff. And you're not going to change that, Ruben. You're not. All right. If it were me, I would have involuntary. That means you would force the criminal drug addicts convicted of a crime. You either go to jail or you go to rehab for a year and a half, like they did in Singapore. And Singapore has no drug problem. And I did my thesis at Harvard on that. I went to Singapore and I saw with my own eyes that when you isolate the market, you take it away, there is no market. And particularly if you're punishing drug dealers. But right now we're in an emergency situation. You would agree with that, right? 14 million foreign nationals unattended in this country, 275 pounds of narcotics being seized. We're in a crisis situation. You got to stop the crisis, right?
I agree. We've got to stop the crisis. We also got to think about how we got here so we don't get into another crisis.
Well, I don't mind about that. That was Kamala Harris who's going to get to the root cause, okay? And she did a bang-up job there.
She didn't really do that. Yeah, she didn't really do that, exactly.
Very, very brilliant woman. But you got to stop the bleeding before you can go to the healing. And to stop the bleeding is, hey, look, President Scheinbaum, you're going to do what we tell you to do, or we're going to punish you. And we're going to punish you hard.
Yeah, that's not going to work, Bill. Here's why. No, here's why that's not going to work. If you quote break Mexico, if we go down to Mexico and pull a John Wayne and we're going to push ourselves around down there, the end result is you're going to have, again, as you said, a Mexican depression. What happens when the Mexican economy goes south? Many more Mexicans come up to the north.
No, they're not going to be able to come up.
What do you want to do?
Because they're going to seal it out. You can seal that border down.
No. We've had this conversation, my friend, for over 20 years. There's a difference between sealing the border and securing the border. I'm with you that you should secure the border. You're never going to seal a 2,000-mile border. Coyotes
you put the U.S. military on the border, you can, and you will, and Trump will do it. Okay, he'll say national security. He'll put the military right on that border.
You're going to have to put the military underground because there are tunnels that go underground.
Well, there'll be some that get through. But it'll be, and if you do it in conjunction with the people smugglers and you wipe out the cartels, as they did with ISIS, if you read Killing the Killers, I methodically went over how Obama and Trump did it step by step. And you could do the same thing with it's easier to do it with the cartels because everybody knows where they are. With ISIS and Al-Qaeda, it was hard to find them. It's not hard to find the cartels. They're partying it up in Acapulco. All right, you can get them. They live in giant, lavish mansions that can be cinder in 15 minutes. So anyway, I am a very, very aggressive person on this issue. I don't believe that Mexico is looking out for America at all, Ruben, at all, in any way. They're not looking out for America. And unless they change, we got to punish them. Last word.
I agree with you. They're not looking out for America, looking out for Mexico, just as we look out for America. You're right. They need that $50 billion a year that Mexicans send up to the United States. It's clear they're out for themselves, but ultimately they do us a lot of good as well by providing intel, a trade that goes back and forth. Over 100,000 people come from San Diego into Mexico every day to go to work and back and forth. So this is not a divorce we can afford to have. We do have a friend and ally down there. And by the way, if you want to know what it's like to have a hostile power on your border, talk to Israel or Ukraine about that. We don't need it.
All right, Ruben. Always great to debate with you. You have a Merry Christmas. Really appreciate your time today.
My friend, thank you.
Okay. By now, you have heard me talk about Delta Rescue. They are a fantastic organization that helps rescue animals from the wilderness. You know, I'm a dog lover, so is Leo Grillo, the founder of Delta Rescue. It is his life's mission to provide everlasting care for these once abandoned animals. I myself have donated to Delta Rescue. Do you believe it is part of man's duty to care for dogs and horses, the animals that so much of our history is tied to? If so, please consider making a donation or consult your advisor about leaving a gift in your will or trust. There can be some tax advantages, and it's a great way to help Delta Rescue accomplish their mission. So please visit deltarescue.org to learn more. That's deltarescue.org. All right, another enterprise, News Nation, is doing well. It's increasing its audience, and it's not ideological, and I am on it. That's not why it's increasing, because I don't do that many spots. I do a morning on Wednesday with Marky Martin. I do Leland Vittert on Monday, and I do Cuomo tonight on Wednesday. So I want to show you 3 sound bites in case you haven't checked that out. The first one is I had to, when I started doing this, and this sound bite is from June 5th this year, I had to kind of educate Cuomo a little bit. Go. I know a lot, Cuomo, and you'd be very wise to listen very closely. So Hunter Biden and Hunter Biden and Donald Trump have one big thing in common. Do you know what it is?
They both like crack cocaine.
Ooh, that's a libel suit right there on you.
I had a question mark at the end of it.
They're both playing the victim. Okay. The second soundbite is about Kamala Harris, all right, not answering any questions. You remember when Bret Baier at Fox interviewed her, he got, I think it was 24 minutes. He was able to ask 11 questions, and the vice president did not answer one of them. Here's what I said. Go. That's insulting to the audience. You see, well, if you ask somebody a question in your personal life, hey, Mabel,
right.
What kind of car is that? And they go, I like pancakes. What? No, okay. I asked you what kind of car that was.
That's fair.
You see what I mean? Okay, so we like to have some humor and stuff like that going on in these segments. And the third one, Stephen A. Smith, who you saw there, is on again. And Stephen A., he gets serious, you know, with Cuomo. And he said, look, I like to be around smart people. And then I replied, go.
That's high praise.
For Stephen A., I don't want to be surrounded by smarter people. That's why I do the Cuomo show. All right, if I wanted to be surrounded by smarter people, I wouldn't be sitting here tonight. Right. Present company, Stephen A. excluded.
Yeah, good, smart move.
Okay, so we'll be on tonight. You might want to check it out. It's a good flow, back and forth. And News Nation, I appreciate the fact that I'm on there, and it's a network that has a lot of potential. Smart Life. So 6.5 million Americans have second homes. I didn't know that. And that's not a lot. All right, that's less than 5% of the population. I mean, it costs enough to keep one home. but 6.5 million have second homes. Some of them vacation homes, some of them are rental properties, whatever it may be. There are certain states that are friendlier if you want to buy a second home. And so as of 2022, Florida led the league. So 1 million Americans have second homes in Florida. Wyoming was last, only 16,000 second homes. Wyoming's a spectacular state, and the real estate is reasonable. A little tip for you, smart life. But anyway, here are the top 10 markets for people buying swanky second homes. First, number one, Cape May County, New Jersey. That's the tip of New Jersey. That gets New York and Philadelphia money. Gulf County, Florida, they're going for the weather and proximity to the Gulf of Mexico. Walton County, Florida, very reasonable to live in Walton County. Barnstable County, Massachusetts, that is Cape Cod. Collier County, Florida. Coconino County, Arizona, don't know much about that. Maui County, after the fire, though, that's fallen off. Beaufort County, that's the low country in South Carolina, very reasonable, very pretty, a little humid. New York County, New York, that's Manhattan, Petit-Terres. People buy small apartments there. And Newport County, Rhode Island, a premier destination. If you haven't been to Newport, put it on your list. So if you're looking for a second home, those are the top 10. And the reason I'm telling you this in a Smart Life segment is, number one, you can visit. And number two, if you buy a home, you want to make money on it. Okay, you don't want to buy, in the middle of you don't want to buy right now in Aurora, Colorado. You don't want to go there. There's a lot of gangs. Okay, you want to go to these places. Smart Life. These astronauts, boy, this is an update. Suni Williams, Butch Wilmore. So they go up on June 5th, all right? They were supposed to spend about a week in space. They're still there. They can't get home. Boeing can't get them out of there. And now they say that it'll be March or even April before they're back home. And they've been up there. We're packed for a week and we're gone 6 months. Now, this, again, goes back to the Biden administration. They run NASA, and Boeing, out of problems, they're stranded up there. They're okay, they're safe, but they can't get them back. Boy, I mean, is this federal government screwed up? Yeah. Thank you for watching the No Spin News. To watch the full episode anytime on BillO'Reilly.com, please sign up to become a premium or concierge member. Visit BillO'Reilly.com to sign up and start watching today.